Yeah, I've talked to some people at the NOC, the National Oil Corporation. They have these laws on the books that you have to hire so many, locals, and you can't have foreign ownership of more than majority ownership. These are laws that basically were put in place by Gaddafi when he took over in 1969. He renegotiated, him and his number two, Abdeslam Jalloud, renegotiated all the oil contracts. And they really led the way there. And they have a very national approach in Libya. I don't see that is going to change anytime soon. Very poor. There's only a few private banks. You had during the sanction years, moving a currency in and out was very difficult. Banking is one of the things you reform. When you move forward and reform, you're going to do that. You're going to privatized banking system or not, and we're not seeing that in Libya. It's going to be difficult. No, nobody wants to take charge of who's in control of the militias. I was talking to a colonel, and he was talking to the chairman Abdul Jalil, and he said, well, I have these problems. I gotta integrate these militias. What are we gonna do? He says, don't talk to me. I'm in the NTC. I'm on the legislative branch. You need to talk to the Tanfizi. He used the Arabic words, Tashri and Tanfizi. I'm in the legislative. You need to talk to the implementation branch, the government, the cabinet who does that. He didn't want to take any responsibility for this, and that's a problem there. There's also a lot. There's a lot of power play behind the scenes about how this is going to happen, because people have interest not to have a centralization, and the NTC hasn't shown that it's really going to move forward on that. I published a policy paper on that in War's Wake, Yemen's militias, if you want to see that, if you want to read more in depth by the Washington Institute. I couldn't believe it. I came into Libya last March, and I thought I'd find a humanitarian catastrophe and disaster, and they'd run out of food, and the international community would have to step up. It never happened. Everything flowed. Everything was fine. They were able to get all the supplies they need. They have money. They even though the foreign assets were frozen, billions of dollars were frozen, they still had money. They were able to import the foodstuffs that they need. They've never had that problem in Libya. The problem didn't exist. They never suffered hardships. Basically, you have a highway system, but what you're going to do in Libya, you see all these little marks. You have so many airports in Libya, and it's so cheap to fly everywhere in Libya. It's very well connected, the airport system. But if you want to drive, this is the major road. It's going to take you about 6 hours to get to here, and then 2 hours there, another 2 hours there. I don't know. Well, they've moved out. Like in Sabha, I was in Sabha a couple months ago, and I saw that this militia is taking control. In Tripoli, it was in Tan, but what we've heard recently is they withdrew from the airport. They've turned over authorities. Well, they're not. This isn't Iraq. We come to this thinking, oh, it's going to be like this. Libya is completely different. Libya, it's just really mellow. It's cool. The people aren't siphoning off oil for here or for there, and the massive corruption that we saw in Iraq. That's just not happening on that level. Yes, there's a little here and there of corruption, but not this massive stuff. So you have in certain areas, you did have into like the refineries and ports. You do have some of the national LNA, the Libyan National Army, come in and take over. There's not an Al-Qaeda presence per se. There are elements in this area. In 1990, in the mid-1990s, the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, which was made up of members of Afghan Arabs who went to fight in Afghanistan. They came home and they started a jihad against Gaddafi. Some of these people are still here. Some people then they fled to Afghanistan and they were recaptured and they were extradited. Some of them have come back. There are some jihadists, some people, Salafis, virulently anti-Western. But the problem is that the Libyans are so grateful to the Western allies for what they did. Al-Qaeda didn't win the war for them. NATO did. So they're grateful for that. You're going to have that wellspring of support for the next generation. People are going to remember Sarkozy for the next 20 years. Okay, to answer the first question, China wasn't really involved a lot in oil. It was mostly in construction some telecom, I think, involved in the internet system, the wireless internet system. So I don't think that they have a lot to lose in the oil industry. I don't even remember seeing Russia. I mean, at the top, they're not a major player. The majors are Eni, Respol, Total, or the American consortium. Those are the big ones. The Russians, I think they have a little bit, but I don't think that they're such a major player that they have so much to lose there. So if we look at the oil is all in Fezzan and here in Cyrenaica. It's not in Tripolitania. So these regions are going to want their fair share. What we're going to have to see is localized budgets, that these municipalities in places like Misrata and Benghazi are going to have to get major budgetary allocations to do the things that they want, so that there won't be long-term grievances against the central regime. The problem with federalism is that Libyans don't understand what it means. They think that federalism means I won't have to go to Tripoli to get a passport, to get a work permit, building permit, zoning, go to the ministries. They don't understand that federalism means that when you cross this line here, the laws are all different. They can't understand that concept. And not only that, but they don't understand. The people here don't understand the situation here is just as bad infrastructurally. It's just that here they have all the ministries. That's basically what the bottom line in federalism is. The people who are at the top of the game of federalism, a lot of them are former Gaddafi people that lost out. They didn't get into the game with the NTC, and they're playing the role of spoilers. That's basically what a lot of these top people are. They weren't big Gaddafi guys, but they kind of supported the regime, and they got their perks from the regime. But they weren't too big to be persecuted, but they didn't get integrated into the NTC. So they're playing the role of spoilers, and they're leading the problem. Now I'm talking about the leaders. Some of these guys, they were like mayor of a town, professor, stuff like this. Some of these people the people. They're not an institution because they're in Benghazi. All the ministries are all over here. All the important things go on in Tripoli, in the capital. So to answer your question, yeah, you're going to need budget allocations. And this is something that you hear a lot when you talk to, not so much the government people, because they're not thinking that far advanced. They're thinking transfer power, or maybe reining the militias eventually. The big diplomats are on that one. The diplomats are like, you're going to have to move port traffic. This town here, Misrata, is very important. What happens is, as I told you, there was stalemate here. It was an 11-week siege against this city. These people, you walk down the streets of Misrata, it's an urban Armageddon. They suffered for so long. I was able to go there in May, June. You had to take a boat for 20 hours. You could not drive on this road because it was controlled by the loyalists. They then pushed west towards Tripoli, and they're the ones who killed Gaddafi, the Misrata brigades. What we're talking about is moving some of the port traffic to Misrata from Tripoli to please them, to placate them. Benghazi's port is horrible. I mean, Misrata's port is 10 times bigger than Benghazi's port. Benghazi's on the other side of the country. Misrata is right near Tripoli. You're going to need an upgrade of Benghazi's port. That's one of the things you can do to really help them out. Move some of the ministries there that can deal with the things here. The international community can get involved. Open consulates in Benghazi, so that people don't have to come all the way here for visas. So, and you can do aid distribution of your programs. Yeah, that's a problem. Is that we're seeing weapons smuggling. I have this on good authority. I had a friend who told me he saw a boat. They captured this boat. It was a fishing boat. It was Egyptians don't. It was an Egyptian fishing boat. Egyptians don't bring fishing boats from Egypt over here. It just doesn't happen. And then when in the middle of the night, the boat disappeared. They detained the boat, and then it disappeared. It was smuggling weapons. You're seeing a lot of the smuggling of the weapons. It's a big problem. Well, I see that the NTC is going to hand over power. They really know there are temporary governing council, they don't have legitimacy in the streets. It's a very big problem. People don't see them as legitimacy, and they also don't see themselves as legitimate. They don't want to make any decisions. They don't want to cut any deals. They don't want to make any long-term decisions here. They want to hand it over. They got a hot potato and they want to pass it on. That's basically what we're going to see. The problem is they're not ready for elections. Like I said, they don't have any experience with pluralistic democracy. There was no way they were going to be able to get. There was a clause that the NTC built in. It said there'd be elections 8 months after liberation, which is I think June 23rd. That's not going to happen. They're just not. The groundwork isn't prepared. They're going to need more time, which means you push off the other things. But once you get the parliament in place, then you're going to get the wheels in motion and get it flowing. So it's going to take more time, but we will see that transition. We're not going to see someone hold up and say, oh, we're going to move to the off there.